Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 3 of Make Today Count. We have some amazing guests for you today in the form of Caroline and Tori from The Wedding Planners. With over 10 years of experience between them, Caroline and Tori, otherwise known as The Wedding Planners, plan luxury weddings and events across the UK and beyond. In 2015, Caroline was awarded Best Independent Planner in the UK by the Wedding Industry Awards and was once again shortlisted as a regional finalist here in 2019. Based in Suffolk, UK, The Wedding Planners truly believe that you should feel relaxed on your wedding day and be able to take in all the magic, safe in the knowledge that every detail is being taken care of. Caroline and Tori, how are you?
Hey, we're good, thank you. Yeah, all good in the busy summer, but feeling good and enjoying midweek when it's a bit quieter.
I bet. So I'm guessing like the midweek time is kind of your downtime to kind of just do admin bits and sort of catch up on things. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. Weekends are all about weddings. Weekdays are all about wedmen at the moment.
Yeah, just getting the balance right at the moment.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for your time today. One of the things that I really want to sort of chat about, because it really sort of affects a lot of us, whether it be in work or our day-to-day lives, is kind of around how we just plan the stuff that we deal with in a day-to-day. I think for a lot of people, it can be really overwhelming. Whether it's kind of planning, we're in the middle of summer holidays now, when people with kids are sort of having to arrange stuff all the time to take kids out and do that kind of thing. And then maybe even have to juggle that as well, with kind of work, and especially if they're working on their own business as well, it's kind of hard to get that kind of mixture between the two. So it's really important that I wanted to sort of touch on this today. But before we do that, if people haven't come across the work that you do before, can you just tell us a little bit kind of your kind of backstory and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I started in the wedding industry about 10 years ago with my own wedding planning company. I'm going to do the quick version. About 5 years into that, Tori came and worked with us on a particular event, some work experience with us. And then we carried on working together. I kind of supported her through setting up her own wedding planning business. And we both had our own separate businesses, but still worked quite closely together for a couple of years. And then about 2.5 years ago, we kind of were out for dinner one evening and just thought, we were kind of having a conversation about business in general, and thought, actually, you know what, we're working together all the time. We really enjoy working together. So why don't we kind of make this official? And that's where the Wedding Planners came from. So although we've both been in the industry a long time, the business we currently run is relatively new.
Yeah, I think it just made sense that, as Caroline says, we were running two businesses that had very similar ethos to them and a similar approach, because partly through me coming into the industry with Caroline as a mentor, really, it made sense that I work in a similar way to her. Even furthering from that, I think in many ways we answer each other well, if that makes sense. There's things that we don't necessarily lack, but that we both complement each other really well. I'm more creative, Caroline's more logistic. We both do both, but there's a lot of chemistry when we're working in those elements together. It seems to work really nicely.
People seem to like it as well.
Yeah. One of the great things that, full disclosure, that we guys have been friends for a while.
Yeah.
One of the lovely things that's from my point of view is exactly that. You guys coming together, we'd kind of worked together in separately in many different ways before you guys had come together. But when it came to the point where you did kind of join up together, it wasn't a big surprise for me in that respect. I can see that there was that kind of that partnership that really worked well. For a lot of us, I guess planning and sort of organization isn't something that comes naturally. You know, for me, it's something that I have to do within the job and, you know, stuff that I do, but it's not something that comes naturally. When was it something that you guys always found kind of pleasure in? You know, were you kids, you know, writing diaries and all that kind of stuff? Did it go that far back?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did. Like throughout my whole school career, if you will, I had teachers and everyone telling me like I was the organizer. I was always the one on the student council. I was the one arranging all of the things. I was on the prom committee. I was told constantly I'd be an excellent teacher because I was so organized and I'd bring people together, and I kind of adopt that leadership role almost. And at home as well, we were fortunate enough to have a nice house and hosted like nice parties throughout the summer, and it was always just a joy for me. I was like, I'll take on that. I'll take that on, like from really early days. And I think you're much the same in your personal life. You're so organised, like
very, very similar. Yeah, and mine definitely comes from my dad. If you saw my dad's office growing up, and even now, to be honest, he's got categories of paper that you would not believe. Even, you know, just it's ridiculous. But he's definitely comes from him. So he worked in hospitality, he was a head chef, he was a catering manager whilst we were growing up. And I can remember even having, you know, we'd have lots of family round for family parties and things, and there would be pieces of paper stuck on all the cupboards in the kitchen with his kind of schedule of what he was cooking and when, what he was serving. He'd have like a diagram of how it was going to look on the plate and everything. And people used to laugh at him, but also they used to really compliment him. You know, you'd see that kind of, you know, at the end of the meals, they'd be like, Terry, that was absolutely amazing. And they really appreciate how much hard work's gone into it. And I think for me, and he was always like, oh, it's nothing, you know. And actually, I feel myself doing that as well, you know, at a wedding just this weekend, just gone. You know, when we left, we saw the bride and groom, and there was, as we're fortunate to get this quite often, there's a nice hug at the end of the night where they say thank you and they've had a great time. And for me, I kind of feel like, well, I haven't really done anything. I've just kind of got on with it. I've really enjoyed myself, you know. So I think for us, it doesn't feel like work.
No, it really comes naturally to us both, and we're so that way inclined that bothers us when things aren't like that. You know, we're just a bit OCD really, and just get a bit knocked off if you can't organise. And a bad habit into a good one, I think.
And I think also funny you mentioned about that, Caroline, is that, you know, you took those traits from your dad. Is that something that you kind of see in your kids? Have they kind of developed that those kind of skills as well?
Definitely, my daughter has definitely.
Oh yeah.
So she's my daughter is 11. She's going up to high school this year. I have no concerns about her getting on at high school. She is, you know, like we've already been and bought school uniform. She's got a wish list on Paper Chase website for all the stationery that she's got to buy. You know, she's really, we're going on holiday this week and her case has been packed for about a week. You know, she's just so well prepared. It's definitely passed on to her.
Just her own clipboard, and that's basically a toy for her.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because when you think about, you know, talking about school and she'll be going up to high school, these aren't kind of core skills that you get taught at school, are they?
Absolutely not.
From ourselves, and that, you know, when you hear about children having to do SATs and other exams and everything, it's one of those things where you sort of think, you know, it should be on the curriculum in some way, you know. And your girls now kind of going through school, is that something that, do they deal with that kind of stuff, or is it something that is sort of reliant on home to help with?
No, I think it's reliant on home. They're very on the academic, which, I mean, she's also good at that, which is fortunate. But they are, you know, I suppose they do teach them some things, you know. As she's moved up in primary school, they have been given more responsibility for things. Like, for example, they have a reading diary they come home with and they have to write in it what they've read each night, and a parent has to sign it off. So they don't expect the parents to do the writing. They expect the child to write down what they've read and some comments about it. But so I think as they get older, they are given a little bit more responsibility in that respect. But having been to kind of the parents' inductions for high school, I think a lot of those children are going to get a bit of a shock when they get to high school, because a lot of responsibility will be on them to kind of keep themselves organised and get themselves to the right place at the right time for lessons and things.
I think with schooling, that is the biggest step up. you see for them to have to really teach themselves. And it is a, sink or swim moment for those year sevens, because they don't pile on the academic pressure in the same way as they do, as Caroline says, the kind of adulthood, the responsibility. You're a teenager now and you've got to be responsible, and those excuses when you didn't do your homework don't cut it quite the same way. It's put back on them. And I suppose that is a way of teaching, but it's like you say, Ross, there is so much that is such a gap that hasn't been filled. I think I know they introduced like life skills, inverted commas, that as a lesson much later on in high schools and in sixth forms, but really the life skills they're teaching are far from the life skills that you need the most.
No, definitely. And Caroline, has she shown any aspirations to be an event planner as yet, or does she want to do something else?
Not specifically as yet. No, whenever you talk to her about what she wants to do, she doesn't really know. And I think that's because, I don't know, I think she's just at a point where it doesn't matter if she doesn't know right now. So she's unsure. But however, saying that, she does get involved with some bits of the business because, I'm running a business from home. She knows that I'm running a business from home, and she does get involved from time to time. I had a wedding. We had a wedding a few weeks ago where we had a table plan and we needed to do some cross-checking on menu orders and things like that. And she helped me with all of that. And did a really good job of it as well, and actually quite enjoyed it. So I don't know, maybe we need to start getting her to do some bookkeeping or something like that.
Perfect, be on the payroll scene. Perfect. So as I said before, there's a couple of scenarios I want to kind of touch upon, which I really think you can give some real value to the listeners. We can talk about business in a second and how we can sort of utilize planning and organization in that kind of field. But when I spoke to a lot of people saying, what do you want us to kind of talk about? It was all around kind of just the day-to-day stuff. I think we've got so much to do now, especially if you run a business yourself, maybe if you've got children, and it's so easy to kind of, especially around this time of, we're recording this in the summer holidays now, when there's a lot going on for a lot of people that have got kids, and even those that haven't got children, they might be running their own business and maybe they've got employees that are off with children, so they've got to kind of manage and sort of juggle everything else. Where do you think people go wrong, and why do you think there's so much overwhelm when it comes to the thought of kind of organisation and planning their sort of day to day?
I think some of it comes from not being prepared. So I think the summer holidays happen every year. So it shouldn't be a surprise that there's 6 weeks of children that are not normally there. And I think I'm quite lucky because I've got my mum that lives not far away from me, and I've got my brother and his family that live not far away from me, and we kind of, as a kind of three families, we share childcare quite a lot over the summer holidays. So I guess the other thing our approach to summer holidays is that we will have a kind of day out once a week, a kind of full-on day out, and that might just be we go to the beach for the day, or we go for a picnic or something like that. And then we'll do some other little bits and pieces. And with that, unsurprisingly, there's a spreadsheet on the wall in my kitchen that has the 6 weeks holidays on it. But what that also means for me is that I know which days I'm working in that, so I can manage that. And the children know which days I'm working, and they know which days we're having a fun day out, or we're doing something else, or, they know what's happening.
There's many ways that when people are trying to prepare for things like 6 weeks school holidays when you're a family with children. I personally don't have children, but there's still times, particularly for the summer for us, Caroline is juggling the children and the school holidays, but also it is our busiest time of year. In my household, that has an effect because I'm absent for a lot of it, and there's a lot of things that I would normally take care of around the house that still need taking care of, but I won't be available to do it. And I think when you look at that as an abstract, and I think this is where so many people find the overwhelm, is that it's this big lump of time, this big lump of stuff that needs doing, and how the heck am I meant to do that because I still have a job and I still have this to do, and X, Y, and Z reason why it's painful and scary to look at, so I'll sweep it under the rug and leave it alone and no one will do it. What we do, me and Caroline both, like independently in our personal lives as well as in our business, is we're very visual with our planning, and we break it down visibly into digestible chunks. We'll have a calendar on the wall, like Caroline says. We'll time block days, not just weeks. We'll start to section jobs out and section our time, our available time out, so that these seemingly impossible tasks can become digestible. There was a long time where Caroline and I were running a business alongside working, because we couldn't, go straight in, all in, both feet jump into a business and self-employment. So we were juggling work, family, home, and running a business. And that was when that came into its own, really, where we really just use time and divide it up and allow yourself to say, I've got an hour. Okay, that can be a really useful hour to do these two things that are actually small jobs but will make me feel a lot better. And that can become a broader scale as well when you've got meatier tasks to get done. It is about, I think for us, it helps to have that visual plan physically written on a whiteboard, written on a diary, so you can see what you've got and how you're going to break it down.
And I think also it takes some time to kind of think about, how do you best take in information? How do you best learn? Tori there about how you're more visual. There'll be some people listening to this, maybe they've chosen to listen to a podcast because they're more auditory, and they do that. So that could be, I don't know, using the notes function on your phone just to record some messages to yourself. I think it's about sort of taking the time out to just understand. And the other thing that I think, Caroline, you mentioned, is that you need to do a little bit of work up front to then have the benefits later on. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say we probably do that on a kind of annual, monthly, weekly, daily basis. So what we try and do kind of daily is, at the end of a day, we'll, like, when we're from a work perspective, at the end of the day, we'll kind of make a few notes of what we want to do, what we want to achieve the following day. But what we'll also do is write down a few things that we've done. So we have a kind of done list as opposed to just a to-do list. So, and it's really good to kind of reflect and go, because you could feel like you've been really busy all day but not achieved anything. But I think sometimes you spend 5 minutes and sit there and just think, actually, no, we did quite a lot today. We achieved lots of things, and it might have been lots of small things, but that all contributes to probably something bigger.
Yeah, and that's so good at battling that feeling of overwhelm, like allowing yourself that headspace, that mindset of, no, I did achieve. It might have been a small step, but hey, that really helped, and it's a small step of many.
And once you've done that, you can kind of draw a line, enjoy your evening with your family, and then you kind of can start thinking the next day.
Well, that's great, because it has a completely separate benefit, like you mentioned there, Tori, in that you look back on a day and feel that you've achieved something. So it might be something for us at home. One of the things that we've found really helpful, especially with the kids, is that in school time when they come home, you would talk to the children about what have you done, and you could sort of have a chat about what we did today, what went really well, what didn't go so well, and all that kind of stuff. So like you're saying there, Tori, maybe using that to reflect on the day and say, oh, we did this today and that was really good and we really enjoyed that. It sort of, it has a different facet to it, in that it kind of brings you together. And even if you haven't got children, it could be you coming together as a couple, because the other thing we haven't touched upon is that we're talking about one diary in a household. Now, if there's two of you and you're both working independently, we could be talking about two diaries now. Now we could be talking about two people's lives that are completely different day to day, and having to manage those and kind of meld them in together. I guess for you guys, is that something? How do you kind of, because I know you've both got respective husbands and partners, how do you kind of make that work between yourselves? Is it something that you kind of come together every week and say, look, this is what we've got in the week, or do you share via your phones, or how does that work for you guys?
So at the beginning of this year, I introduced a whiteboard to my kitchen, which I think changed my other half's life. he whenever he goes, what are you, I go, look at the board. Go to the board. And on this board in our kitchen, I break it down by week, and I put on all of my appointments, anything I've got going on, which days I'm working, where I'll be working, what I'm doing, and when and why goes onto that board. It's the Bible for the week, and it means Griffin, he can he'll know, okay, well, I'm just doing dinner for myself tonight, or I can expect Tori to get in late tonight, or whatever's going on, and it's something you've brought into your house. And it's been useful even on those moments of, like we were saying, like just to like take it back just for a second about the achievements in the week in the house when we've both been feeling overwhelmed or having a low week, which happens to the best of us. You know, us as a couple, like I'll put on a space on that whiteboard. Caroline's seen it before and gone, oh, what's this? Where sometimes if we're having a really stressful, overwhelming time, I'll put a space on that board. In addition to all of the work that we're doing, I'll put a space on for us to each put something we're grateful for that week. And it might be, I'm grateful that I have work to do every day. It might be, I'm grateful for, you know, the water I'm drinking, or it could be more specific, more broad, whatever. And that's been really helpful for us. It's planning the week, keeping your mindset where it needs to be so that you can achieve more.
And because I think a lot of people can kind of relate to what you're saying there, Tori, and that you decided that you needed to put that in place at home. What was happening beforehand? Was it just the fact that kind of Griffin didn't know where you were or what you were doing, and that was where that kind of spun from?
Yeah, it was causing so much stress between us where it would be, I don't have time to tell you what I'm doing right now, but I'm because I'm really busy. And he'd be going, well, I don't know you're busy. What are you busy doing? How can I help? Is there anything I can help with? And it was this. It was a different kind of overwhelm for us because obviously I'm an organizer. I'm a person who does plan things, but it made me aware that I was planning for myself and I wasn't necessarily factoring him in when it came to my busy time with work. I'd be like, well, I'm busy and I've sorted that out. I'm managing that busyness. I mean, there was times in my life where I was working 3 jobs while running the business. I had a lot going on and it was hard to kind of just be crossing paths all the time. And when you've had an end of a long day where you've worked a job and then gone on and worked, 6 till midnight on your business, and then you get home to then be like, oh, what's going on tomorrow? I don't want to tell you. I just want to sleep. I don't want to do anything right now. So it really helped us kind of like push that negativity out of the household and be like, okay, this is the plan for the week. This is how we can work together for this week.
And I guess also part of that conversation is understanding and communicating with your partner around how they manage their own time and how it's best for them as well. Because, from what you're saying, Tori, you're a visual person, so the whiteboard was a good way of doing that for you. I'm guessing Griffin, I'm guessing that he's probably a visual person as well because of the talk and stuff that he does. Yeah. But there could be a scenario where maybe someone's more kind of they prefer to write things down and write lists and all this kind of stuff. So that conversation has to span into, how can we make it work for us both so that, it's kind of fulfilling my need to be able to see what I'm doing, but then translating that to you as well and trying to do that. So I guess from your point of view, it's quite good that you're both kind of visual learners and communicators in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
For Caroline, is that the same for you guys, or is there a different style that you sort of take on?
Yeah, it's slightly different. Matt is much more tech focused. He works in IT, as you know. So he doesn't really do a paper diary. We do have a whiteboard in our kitchen as well. Ours is split into 4 columns, so the kids are in there as well. I find that really helpful. So we know, particularly when they're at school, so we know which days they need to have their swimming kit, which days they need their PE kit, that kind of thing. And also they know, we used to put on there kind of who's picking them up from school. So if it wasn't going to be me for whatever reason, they'd know if it's going to be Grandma or Auntie Rachel or whatever. So that works really well on a kind of week by week basis. And also, so Matt works from home, but he travels around the country quite a lot for work. So it's really helpful for us to know where he was as well each week. So we can kind of plan a little bit and know that actually, he's quite far away today, so he's probably not going to be home for dinner with all of us. So we might need to sort something different out. So that was quite helpful in that respect. But longer term planning, what I've had to do, so Tori and I share a Google Calendar, which we use for work, and all of our kind of key events for work and meetings are in that Google Calendar. And we've shared that with Matt so that actually, if he's looking at a date in the future and he's thinking, I might do something on that date, or he's got something coming up for work, he can have a little look at that Google Calendar and just check in and see if we've got anything in there as well. So that works really well for him.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because something I hadn't asked you both is, are you team electronic diary or are you team written
Oh
diary? Is
God,
there
we're both.
It's a
both?
nightmare.
I guess it should be both
Yeah.
if you're planners, and in that kind of respect, because not all of us. I know at home with us, Tanya loves a handwritten
Yeah.
diary, and something that she's always done, and she uses technology to an extent, but she's not actively using it all the time. And I've always held a sort of, like you say, a Google Calendar. I had it on my phone, but the best thing that we've done now is that exactly what you've done. You just share the calendar, especially on Google Calendar. So
So
easy,
easy.
so easy. And then at any time, she can just open up her phone and have a look, and then see what I'm doing, and vice versa. I can put in stuff for the kids. I can put in anything in that. And it just works so well. And when you're sort of planning appointments and stuff, with Google Calendar, if you're using some of these appointment apps as well, they all feed into these things as well. So it's any way that you can kind of make it kind of seamless in that respect. So that's great. So I think what we're taking away is that spend some time before key events, I guess, like summer holidays, that kind of thing, or even the week ahead, and take some time to put some time into planning. I think is to also make sure that you're actively communicating with those around you, both those you love at home and maybe those at work as well, just to understand what their kind of planning styles, learning styles are, to ensure that everyone's getting everything they need out of the situation, and maybe use some of this fantastic technology that we've got to sort of plan some of this stuff. Is there any, talking about Google Calendar and those sort of things, are there any particular apps or websites or functions that you guys kind of use for some of your planning at home and day-to-day stuff, or is it more sort of a whiteboard type scenario for you guys?
It's mainly been like the Google suite that you can get, which is so useful. We're obviously huge spreadsheet people and actually do a lot of our kind of forecast style planning on spreadsheets rather than apps at the moment. But we've looked into the, like you were saying about appointment making, we've looked into things like Calendly, which is an app which is all geared around appointment making. So if you're in business, that's something that's really we're exploring, and along with others. But
I think one of the things from my point of view is that I found myself, if I was kind of booking appointments with people, you kind of have to get someone on the phone. Then it's dependent on, if you're calling them at the right time, if they've got the diary with them, all that kind of stuff. Or if you're going via email, you're going back and forth with email saying, oh, is this date okay? No. Is this date okay? No. And you're sort of going through whereby using something like Calendly or Acuity, which I use as well, you can just then send a link. They can view the calendar. It looks at Google Calendar and says, right, when's Ross doing stuff? Right, he's not doing anything then. We'll present that to that client as a potential thing, and it just saves so much time.
Definitely.
And also it's a great experience for the person using it as well. Especially if you're running a business as well. It's great to just kind of send them a link and say, look, here's my diary. Pick what you need to at a convenient time. I think that's, as many ways as you can kind of save yourself time on these kind of little menial sort of day-to-day tasks, the better, because you'll then free up more time to do all the fun stuff and all the things that you really love to do with your business, and more importantly, spending time with those you love at home. So it all kind of feeds into each other
absolutely.
in that way. But like you were saying, Tori, the Google suite is so vast now. There's so much kind of integration and stuff that you can kind of use with that. Opportunities are
exactly. Yeah.
And I think moving on now, if we leave home for the moment, we're gonna say that we've got all our shit together at home, and we're doing all that fantastically. So we're going to move over to work now, and I think work planning. I think would you agree that kind of the rules are generally the same as at home? So I kind of didn't want to touch upon that today. I want to talk about something different. And looking at the core of your business, obviously you guys do weddings and events. And I think some of my listeners, whether they work independently or in a small team or as part of a larger organization, one time in someone's working life, they're going to be asked to organize some kind of event. Maybe it's a team building event, maybe it's the inaugural Christmas party that everyone looks forward to. in December. And, you know, taking on that sort of task for someone that hasn't done it before is quite a feat, depending on sort of how big the organization is, and kind of what you've got to do. I know you've had experience in working with companies and also people that have at home that have run parties and stuff at home. Where do you think, kind of, again, looking at sort of addressing that overwhelm, where do you think people go wrong when they're trying to organise these kind of fun events?
I think, I mean, there's probably two figures that you need to know when you start planning an event. One is the number of people, and the second is the budget. I think the thing that people don't do a lot of the time is set a budget for an event.
Okay.
And in the corporate world, you probably would be given a budget for an event. With a party, you know, say someone's planning their 40th, their 50th, an anniversary party, something like that. There's probably a good chance that you'll just say, I just want to have a really nice party. You might not set a budget for it, but actually, everyone has got a limit of the amount they are kind of prepared to spend on something, because we have this with weddings as well. You know, if we know the budget, we can achieve something for them within their budget, you know, and it's exactly the same with parties. You know, you can plan a party, you can get a party for £500, you can get a party to £50,000, you know, but it's just, if you don't know what that figure is that you're working to, that's really difficult.
And why do you think it is that people don't do that? Is it like a procrastination because they want to do all the fun stuff? Is it? Or
I think
they don't want to kind of look at that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a huge thing. And I think as well, it's a bit of a very head in the sand. If you don't address a budget, then you can get what you want. And when you're trying to deal with an office environment, organising a Christmas party, it's meant to be fun, but it can be so stressful because you'll have everyone giving you their opinion on what's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they know best, and realistically it's going to be down to one person. They're trying to juggle, they're trying to juggle expectations, and actually when they've got all those people around them giving them their ideas, slowly but surely that budget problem drops lower and lower down the list, because they're just trying to go, well, Sharon wants to make sure it's definitely a 3-course, and Steve definitely doesn't want to go back to there because he hated that last year, but Amy really, really needs it to be. And you just think, oh my gosh, that's not where it goes. And it is numbers of people and your budget that should really lead you into finding the right thing for you.
That's such a good point. You know, I really want to get your views on that. And I think loads of people can relate to this. And if they work in offices or they work in that, you know, even if you go out for a Friday night, meal, and you say, you ask that question that just sends you balmy, it's, where would you like to go? And then,
should be a simple question, but no.
I know. How do you deal with that? You know, if exactly like you say, if you've got one person that can't eat certain foods, if you've got one person that went to that restaurant before and hates it, is it best to just make a decision and just say, look, come if you want to, if you don't?
I kind of think it is. I think you kind of have to accept that you can't please everybody. I think you are in that situation. We had a family meal not that long ago that I organised with some of my cousins that we don't get together that often, and we decided that actually we were all going to get together and go out for a meal. There was 4 of us, and we had this little group set up, this group chat, and it took us quite a while to get a date that we could all do. And then they were all saying, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And in the end, I just said, right, I've booked a table. You all need to be there at 7:30. And that was just the easiest thing to do, because I just thought, I can't keep going back and forth and asking people what they want. I'll just pick something. So I did in that occasion. But
it's have confidence in yourself. You've been given a task by your boss, giving you a budget, you know, roughly how many each year, you know, there's a different, and in your is it 300, you know what you're looking at, you know which venues are available to you. You've got to have confidence, have faith, book it, get the deposits down, and let people decide if they want to come or not. You know, that is what your job is in that scenario, and it is about having confidence. Like, don't doubt yourself. They're all going to have an opinion anyway, but they also all want to have a party, so they will come.
And I think even asking that question sometimes kind of sends you down the wrong path. You know, in the end of the day, people will generally go with what is presented to them. Exactly. So if from the off you say, right, we're going to the so-and-so Chinese restaurant down the road, it's 7 p.m, put your name down if you want to come along. Generally, people, I think, would go with that, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think often as well, people are just grateful that someone else has done it, because they might have done it in the past, or they might have experienced it in kind of life in general as opposed to work, and kind of thought, thank God so-and-so has been asked to do that, because I would have hated it,
Yeah.
One of the things that that sometimes comes up, and that I guess you kind of worry about, is when what I call kind of forced fun, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So maybe someone's been given the task to arrange a party, Christmas party. Maybe the party hasn't been that great for the past couple of years. They, morale's a bit low and everything. Sometimes the knee-jerk reaction is to start to arrange all these crazy things that people do. Is that something that what's the best way of kind of managing that, so that you can ensure that, I guess, guests have a great time, but then it doesn't seem as if it's kind of forced or kind of against their will in some way?
God, that's so hard, isn't it?
Don't watch The Office. That is number one on that list. They're probably not the best.
Do you think sometimes it's just overthinking it too much?
I think it is, because it is, again, it's like Caroline said earlier, people are generally grateful because at some point in their life they've been asked to do that, or they've watched you from afar and gone, God, you've done really well. It's really hard. There's so many opinions to juggle. You're never going to please everyone except that, and that's okay. We're all different people. I think just it is, like I say, it's not being try hard. If you try and jam pack it with every ridiculous game you can find on the internet, it will just bore the heck out of people. People will see through it, and you'll just get a really bad reaction. I think it is, don't overcomplicate it, and trust those instincts. Really, your colleagues.
I think especially if it's maybe the first one that you've done, maybe just maybe go for something to eat, and just use that general conversation flow to see how things go, and generally people just feel more relaxed in that way, don't they?
If you make it like a meal, then you've got the option of those who want to have a kind of more of a party essence to it, might continue somewhere to a bar for drinks, have that lined up and if you want to carry on into the evening, you can, but actually Brian from accounts will definitely want to go home to his cats, so we know that, so he'll come for the meal, and that will be that. If you have those options, then I think you're going to please everyone without forcing everyone. Because for some people, I mean, even people in my family, I know there's some of us in my family who would be confident to do a game like a parlour game, a charade sort of game, whereas my mum would want the ground to open up and swallow her if she was asked to stand up in front of a group of people and perform something in any way. And that's the same in offices. There are going to be such contrasting characters there. Do something nice and simple that actually someone can make it what they want. Someone will come in with a joke jumper on and be ready to be the kind of class clown for the meal and will want to join you at the bar afterwards and kind of be the first in line for the shots, and yet some of them really won't, and they'll just want to have a nice meal, see everyone, and then head home. It is, make it open without being forceful. Like, don't try to force like a circle into a square. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just like they say, Tori, it's just about respecting everyone's role within that, and you probably find that there are people who take up the similar roles that they take day to day in the office environment as well.
Absolutely.
As you say, there'll be someone that's a little bit more quiet, someone that's a bit more of a joker, and just to let them be themselves in that environment, and don't kind of constrict them, I guess, in that way. If we talk about budget, and it's something that you should know your numbers beforehand. If maybe the budget isn't as kind of fruitful as maybe it could be, where are some kind of ways that you can kind of still have a wonderful party but kind of save some money in certain areas?
I think it depends on the type of party a little bit. Often with kind of most events, the cost tends to often go on food and drink. So often that is an area that you can save some money on. So actually, maybe everyone doesn't need to have a 3-course meal. Maybe a few canapes as they arrive, and then going straight into a main course is enough. And there's lots of ways you can save money when it comes to food. It also depends how many people you're catering for.
I think speaking about sort of catering as well, I think, you know, if we refer back to kind of weddings, and we've all had experiences in those as well. If it's a longer event, and maybe a day event that you're doing, sort of team building come party type thing, is one of the things that people often make the mistake in doing is having the say like a sit down meal closely followed by a buffet about an hour later or 2 hours later. That happens quite a lot, doesn't it? You know, in that kind of event space, because I guess there's the thought that they need to provide those things, but then, you know, if they've just sat down and had a lovely meal, they may not need those kind of snacks and stuff a little bit later.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of that, particularly with food, managing people's expectations is probably the biggest prize you can give yourself, you know. So for example, if an event is starting at 2:00, make it clear to guests that they probably should have some lunch before they come, you know, because actually they're going to get fed some dinner, but that might be it. And I think so whenever we plan events, the main thing that people usually want is for their guests to have a great time. And I think that will be exactly the same in kind of any event, really, is all you really want is for people to enjoy themselves. And actually, the more they know about what's going to happen at the event, the more prepared they are and the more they will enjoy it.
Yeah, it's as a guest at the weekend, which rarely happens for us. And one of the first things I did when I got there, I was like, where's the time plan? I want to know when they're cutting the cake. I want to know when the evening food comes out. I want to know when the first dance is like coming. I was just seeking the information so that I could be like, oh, okay, well, I'll get a drink and then I'll head to the front door, then I'll be prepared for this. Do I need my bag with me? Do I want my camera? That sort of thing. You as a guest, when you're invited and you're in that environment, whether you're a confident person or not, I think you seek information because that would be your only safety blanket. So if you as an organizer can provide that information, as Caroline says, on the invite, on the ticket, if they know they're coming to an arrival drink and a 3-course meal, then they won't eat beforehand. You know, it's really important to give them that information.
That's really interesting because, you know, if you think about kind of works dues or works events, we often don't kind of give any information beforehand or very little. You know, we might send an email round, but, you know, unlike a wedding or a party, we don't have that kind of that invite space to kind of put this information on. So I think that's a great tip in like setting the expectations so they know exactly what time they'll be arriving, and just maybe what about kind of giving them sort of a timeline of what's going to happen? Would that be helpful as well?
Definitely. I think the more information you can give people in advance, the better. Because, you know, you might have some people that have got to a babysitter in or something like that, you know, so they need to be able to manage expectations at home as well. And also the other thing, particularly with work events, dress code I think is really important, because particularly with there is a kind of relaxed attitude, particularly if people are working in office environments. Most office environments are relatively casual. So it's kind of, well, what do you wear when you're going out for work? Because you might not want to wear the same sort of outfit you might wear if you were going out with friends. So giving people kind of a steer around dress code will just make them more comfortable as well.
Yeah, people crave to fit in. And if they turn up in their dress, you know, heels and a frock and everyone else went jeans, you'd feel really self-conscious. You wouldn't enjoy yourself as much at that party. You'd be really quite stressed out, even for the most confident person. And so you can spare people that embarrassment or give them some comfort by letting them know quite early on what a dress code will be.
Oh man, especially, you know, God forbid, if it was fancy dress.
Quite. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it'd be mortifying, wouldn't it? You'd never live it down. It would exist in the office a month after. Yeah. It would be painful forever.
Especially if that fancy dress idea was cancelled, but you didn't know about it, you know, and you turn up dressed as goodness knows what. Wow. Yeah. That's perfect. That's some great tips. So what I'm kind of hearing from what you're saying is that the main takeaways are kind of knowing your numbers, be around who's going to be in attendance and kind of your budget, what you've got to spend. I guess it's also around putting the planning time into it, but don't overthink it.
Yeah.
So make sure logistically everything's covered, but don't kind of overthink it. So you have to, you know, cater for everyone, because you can't do that. You just have to, in some ways we've spoken about kind of just making a decision sometimes and going for it. Safe in the knowledge that you've been asked to do the job because whoever asked you to do it thought that you were the best person for the job. And then on top of that, when you're kind of on the day, just kind of letting the day flow as it was, give as much information as you can before the actual event, set those expectations, and just generally let people enjoy themselves in their own roles and what they want to do. And, you know, like I say, we can't cater to everyone, but what we can do is, you know, make sure a solid event is put on that hopefully everyone's going to enjoy.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's perfect. I think we've done so much today. We've sorted everyone's lives out. We've sorted everyone's next big party at work. So that's fantastic. I think if we were to say, I mean, the name of the show is Make Today Count, and the purpose of that being is that, you know, my goal from having these conversations is that when someone's listening to each of these podcast episodes, that they can take away one tip that maybe they can implement in their next working day, their next day tomorrow, that would maybe on this subject take what they're doing to the next level. If we firstly think about the home stuff that we talk about, I know we spoke about some really great tips that people could use, but what would be the number one thing that someone could do tomorrow, as we're in the summer holidays at the moment? What could they do tomorrow? What one tip to sort of take that first step?
I would say time blocking. So this is something we do when we're getting a bit overwhelmed. We will kind of take a step back and time block an entire week. So what I mean by time blocking is we'll take our whole week, we will put down our day. Each day will start from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. We start off by filling in all the non-negotiable things. So for example, I will have maybe an hour or two in the morning where I'm with the children, we're doing breakfast, we're doing our morning routine, and there'll be the same kind of little block in the evening for bedtime. We're reading stories, we're getting ready for bed, that's family time. We might block out kind of an hour at lunchtime. So we're going to take a break, we're going to have some lunch, get out, get some fresh air, go for a walk. And then we'll look at our goals for that week. So what things do we need to get done work-wise that week? What things do we need to get done life-wise that week? So it might be that you block out an hour to do some food shopping. You block out a couple of hours somewhere to clean the house. And then you kind of start to fill in all of the gaps. We'll look, and like I say, we'll look at our goals for the week and we'll put in, right, so on Monday, I need to spend an hour doing some admin. Next hour needs to be working on a particular client's work. Then I'm going to make half an hour doing some phone calls. You know, so we kind of use a time block template to map out our week, and actually that probably makes us hugely more efficient than we are if we don't do it.
Perfect. So what we're saying is time blocking. That's what we're going to do going forward from tomorrow in regards to our day-to-day life. Tori, on the kind of the event side, the work event planning side, what I know we spoke about lots of different things, and what would you say is kind of that one thing that we could take into tomorrow if we are asked to sort of plan something at work?
I think really it is that budget, being really strong and committed to it. Don't stray, stick to that, and you can break that down. We often, for couples that we work with or clients that we work with on a party, we'll sometimes say, okay, well, if that's your whole budget, break it into like a percentage, 40% is going to go on your venue, for example. Or as they start to explore the options for the party, you can start to assign that, like you chunk that budget up, but really use it in every element of the planning process. It's going to be your steering on everything you decide, because it will make or break an event. You can't organise an event that's going to go thousands of pounds over budget. It's just not going to work. There's no point in creating that party if it doesn't fit in your budget. You've got to be realistic with yourself and use it, and don't let it be an enemy. It's not. It can be a really helpful tool as you go through planning.
Perfect. Excellent advice. As we mentioned at the beginning of the interview, you guys are sort of in the thick of kind of weddings and everything at the moment as we go through the wedding season. Tell me a little bit more about kind of what else you've got coming up, what you've got planning, anything else that the viewers might need to know about.
Well, I think if listening to this, the organisation's actually excited you, or if you're someone who's keen to get into an organised world or a planning world, that's something we've been working on more recently. It's our newest project is an academy for people who want to come into the planning world. We've got Wedding Planners Academy. It exists on Facebook, and later this year we're actually going to be launching a course which will be training those academy students up to be a planner and in every essence of what we do within our planning. So that is how to plan events and weddings, but also how to run a business while you're doing those events and weddings.
Perfect. And where can we find information about that anywhere particular, or?
Probably the best place to find us is Instagram. We are at the Wed Planners. And from that's probably the place where we're most active. Yeah. And from there you can find everything else.
Perfect. And just to recap, also you can find you online at theweddingplanners.co.uk.
Wedplanners.co.uk.
Thewedplanners.co.uk. And with Facebook and that kind of thing, is it all on the same handle?
Yeah, Facebook is the Wed Planners UK, Instagram the Wed Planners.
Perfect. Excellent. So thank you so much for your time today, ladies. It's been fantastic. Well, I always like to kind of end these episodes in kind of showing some gratitude and some thanks. And we've known each other for a long time now, Caroline especially. Yeah. And one of the things that I've always found kind of remarkable about what you do is kind of your kind of compassion and your kind of professionalism in what you do, and the kind of focus on the client or who you're working with, sometimes at your own detriment, to try and get the best out of the situation, and to make sure that they have the most amazing day. And I know, as I mentioned before, meeting Tori and kind of get to know her a little, it was just a given that you guys would be working together because you just have that same ethos. So thank you from all the clients and the couples that you've had the pleasure of working with. I know from, I see it on your Instagram feeds and your feedback that you're doing such an amazing job, and, safe in the memory that, these families are having these experiences, these wonderful parties, these wonderful weddings, and they'll be looked on with such fond memories, and to think that you play a big part in that is really admirable. So thanks for what you do.
Thanks, Ross. That's so lovely. Thank you.
That's no problem. So thank you for your time again. It's been really great to speak with you. I hope maybe another time we can come on and chat about something else.
Yeah, definitely.
Best of luck with the academy as well. As Caroline and Tori had just mentioned, if you're into, maybe if you want to kind of, you've heard today that what Caroline and Tori are doing in the wedding planning world is something that really kind of sparks something interesting in you. Maybe like these guys when you were younger, maybe you had the same kind of diary tendencies and you maybe want to advance that. Please get in touch with them and they can take you on that journey as well. Also check out their Instagram feed, and I know that they share regular updates on the stories aspect of that as well, so you can keep up to date with what they're doing. But until the next time, I've been Ross Dean. This is Make Today Count, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.